Uhuru! Freedom's greetings, comrades, and welcome to this very special 2-hour episode of the One Africa Worldview Podcast. I'm Jainabah Lumumba, and we are dedicated to letting you know about the history-making impact of this major tornado that hit North St. Louis 2 weeks ago, and we're inviting you to support the massive recovery effort that is underway right now. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Mariah Bond, and we're two of the regular hosts for the One Africa Worldview Podcast, which airs weekly on the Birding Spirit TV channel on YouTube and Rumble, and we're also on Black Power 96.3 FM radio in St. Pete, Florida. Shout out to the Bird. And it's the 96.3 FM radio station is a project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, the baddest nonprofit on the planet. Today's very special program is also being simulcast on radio stations WGPY-LPFM in Gulfport, Florida, WXPP-LPFM in Palmetto, Florida, and WULB-LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, along with our dear friends in the world of live stream podcasts on YouTube. We're on channels hosted by Joy Mann, author Dr. Wilmer Leon, Garland Nixon, Ryan Napoli, and Caleb Maupin of the Center for Political Innovation. We want to thank and salute these independent broadcasters for helping to spread the word about this incredibly important story that so far has been ignored by most of the big media outlets.
Well, today on the show, we'll hear from people impacted by the tornado over in St. Louis and from others who are working to support that recovery effort. We'll be joined live from St. Louis by African People's Education Defense Fund President Zene Yeshitela, former Alderman Jesse Todd, Neighborhood Association President Christopher Gladney, and reparations activist Penny Hess and Jesse Nevel. So let's get right into it. On Friday, May 16th, a 150-mile-per-hour, mile-wide tornado hit St. Louis. What most people don't know is that devastation of this massive storm was concentrated in the impoverished Black community and on city's north side. Over 1,000 homes have been condemned, and several properties that house community programs of the African People's Education and Defense Fund were actually damaged. For our viewers on the live stream, we're going to share some photos showing some of that devastation. And for our radio listeners, we'll describe what we're seeing as we're watching it with words of those survivors. You can go ahead and check out that video.
Yeah, and right here we're seeing an employee that's reacted to the damage at King's Beauty Shop after the tornado ripped through the business at City Plaza in the Fountain Park neighborhood.
Wow, look at that devastation.
And Lisa Nash had said it sounded like a freight train. We just prayed and prayed and prayed. She's the owner of Heaven Sent Banquet Hall. That tornado ripped through her business in the Fountain Park neighborhood as she was setting up for a 100-person wedding, and she and another employee were trapped inside. That photo was really heartbreaking. I mean, there was a 60-year-old man waiting with the body of his wife, Alan Lyles. Yeah, his wife Rena Scott Lyles, after she was killed by the tornado in their house, and they were running towards the basement when the house collapsed. Who was Scott Lyles' daughter? And she said Rena was trapped under a dresser while Alan was blown into a wall. And she said they were buried in two different spots, just 5 inches away from me.
Wow. And we just see all the broken tree limbs and just all the debris. We see that Fountain Park and there, just...
Yeah, that's Gwen Hudges sweeping up the residual debris in front of her collapsed home in North Newstead on Friday, May 23rd as the dust falls. And then this woman is retrieving shoes from the trunk of one of her vehicles. And she says, "I'm not going anywhere." That's Gwen Hudgens. Yeah, and that's Darnell Hard Times Forrest. He says, I feel so blessed with so many people coming out to help me. They were placing a tarp on the front of his home on Sunday the 18th, and that was in the 4500 block of Cottage Avenue.
Mm.
Man.
Just
And
all the
then,
destruction.
yeah, and then this is you know, someone who is just, I mean, they're intense, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
just
so incredibly
trying to
sad.
save everything, trying to save everything that they can.
It looks like a scene from Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah,
It looks just like what we saw,
we see it.
and it's so good to see all of these beautiful, smiling African faces just glowing in the sun, despite all of this that's happening. But it's because of the power of the Black Arms, because of the power of the African People's Education and Defense Fund organizing in the community that we were able to, take care and be self-sufficient and take care of ourselves. Man.
Just in the cars, look at just trying to just survive.
Hmm. Yeah. And you're seeing like the insides of the various homes. It's absolutely um, devastating. Yeah. And then there's someone who, it said that someone was seen clearing out their family home, literally sitting in front of the rubble.
Yeah.
There's fallen debris
This is this the
everywhere.
house I used to play in when I was little? Asked Danielle Austin.
Oh,
Just like
so
broken
sad.
cross there. I mean, just I got to keep moving, says Timothy Taylor as he cleans up that debris. And we're just seeing this over and over and over, all the destruction, all of the despair on the faces.
And that's the red tag that you'll see on the various homes. Wow.
Oh, Miss Bernice Collins, just being assisted out of that vehicle by volunteers that have come in, our people that's helping our people.
Someone said, I grew up in this community. People need help and we're helping. He was using a sledgehammer.
Oh,
Oh, that's a friend who dropped by to see how you're doing. This is going to bring St. Louis together, is what
bring
he
it
said.
together. Wow, just everyone coming together. Mariah Guthrie advertises free food, drinks, and essentials. All the supplies, just stuff there to survive through this tragedy.
Jerica McLeod, 23, says, I've never seen anything like this. Talking about the destroyed second story of her family home on Kensington Street in the Academy neighborhood of St. Louis. And the second story is completely open to the sky.
Open to the sky. The David Lester building here is seen standing on the second church, which is now open to the skies. He says David Lester.
Man. And you can see that despite being completely demoralized, that these people are organized and they're taking care of themselves.
You can even see that storm warning siren right at the top.
Right. This is what we're seeing, you know, people collecting bricks, and trying to move whatever they can to gather whatever is left of their personal belongings. I mean, I couldn't imagine. Look at him sitting on the curb with bricks strewn all about, cars turned
Oh, wow.
upside down, like this is a Fast and the Furious show. Like the tornado literally
All the
picked
trees.
it up
Yes.
and let it down.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Well, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch newspaper, on some streets on the north side hit by the tornado, 7% of homeowners don't have homeowners insurance to even cover that damage. And the article actually reads, the May 16th tornado battered blocks in North St. Louis where more than 70% of homeowners likely don't have insurance, according to a Post-Dispatch analysis of the U.S. Census data. Not all city streets have such high rates, with the figures varying among blocks where the tornado carved a path of damage. But the sheer number of uninsured properties will complicate recovery in neighborhoods that were already among the poorest in the region, struggling with decades of disinvestment and packed with thousands of vacant properties. Lenders require homeowners with mortgages to carry insurance, but many of North St. Louis residents actually inherited these homes and they don't have insurance on them. And I mean, these are decades old homes that we're talking about, and these mortgages, they're already paid off. And next, I mean, we'll share a compilation of that damage and what was done to the Black community of North St. Louis. And the voices you'll hear is that voice of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who surveyed the damage immediately after the tornado.
Massive trees, not just small trees. Whole tops of buildings were destroyed in our community. So, as I said, this is something that happened in the African community. Wow. The attempt is going to be made to characterize what has happened as something that was simply an act of nature. And of course, we can say that the tornado was something that was provided by nature, but the devastation that impacted the African community was not all due to nature. Much of it as a consequence of the political decisions that were made by the government, that were made by particular politicians, Black and white, who serve a colonial government at the expense of the African community.
Wow. So, of course, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, leader of the African nation, chairman, founder of the African People's Socialist Party, is going to have the correct analysis on this entire thing. So what we're seeing is literally under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the community is coming together. Chairman Omali, in his classic hat, is pointing his finger. DC Ona Yeshitela is leading the way. And you can see all kinds of volunteers taking up whatever tools that they can, getting and talking with the neighbors, mobilizing, and really initiating that collective recovery response. And I'm not just saying this because that's my grandfather, you know what I mean? And I'm so incredibly proud of the work that everybody within the party has done. I'm saying that because this is what we want to see anytime we have any struggles within our community. We want to be the one taking it on. And it's not just something that comes out of thin air.
We just got together and just started putting everything out on social media to see if people could come and help. We have about 7 properties on this Florissant corridor. We have the basketball court that we built from scratch, was $160,000. We got the bakery down a little farther on John that we're trying to open up now. We was in a battle with the city for 10 months just to get a permit to bring fresh food and baked food into this community. Yeah. So we finally got the permit. The contractors are working now, and then the hurricane hit. So we're just trying to really just clean up everything in one area where we could, hopefully the city will bring dumpsters and we can, you know, and pick everything up. So we just really, really appreciate everybody to come out. And this is gonna be a real corridor once we get going. Karen across the street, she has a healthcare business. She purchased this building here and she's fixing it up. She want to put a cigar lounge in there and some other things in there. You know, other people are starting to fix up their community now that they see that it can be savable. So we're, Black Power Blueprint is part of that. So we just really want to, you know, just get everything out of in one pile or 2 or 3 piles where the city can come and pick it up. So we're just really happy that you guys can come out and help us facilitate that.
Yeah, they talk about $1 billion for St. Louis because of the tornado. But what they don't say is that $1 billion need to come to an African community that bore the brunt. I went to South St. Louis on the very day this tornado came through and was talking to some white people, and these are activists, which presupposes a certain kind of progressivism progressivism on their part, people who keep up what's going on. And they're telling me events they were doing. They asked me what happened. I'm telling them how North St. Louis has been devastated, and they were shocked. They had no idea that it was going on. So in the same city, if people don't know what the hell is going on, I know you don't know in the various places that you're located, despite the fact they may show something bad happen in St. Louis. They don't show that it's concentrated. It's a concentrated destruction based on policies that the depth of which, based on political determinations, political decisions made by a colonial administration.
Uhuru. First of all, gotta salute African People's Education and Defense Fund President Omali Yeshitela, Zene, for organizing all of those volunteers and making sure that all the donations were distributed properly.
Uhuru, what a powerful video, what a powerful movement there. And we would like to invite everyone that's actually listening to this program on all of the participating community radio stations or watching on the Burning Spear TV or any of the participating streaming platforms to consider making a tax-deductible donation to the St. Louis Northside Disaster Fund recovery work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, the 501c3 nonprofit organization that also operates Black Power 96.3 FM radio station in St. Petersburg, Florida. And you can do that by donating over at blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund. That's blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund. You can send a check to the St. Louis Uhuru House, located at 4101 West Florissant Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. That's 4101 West Florissant Avenue, over in St. Louis, Missouri. Or you can call in to 888-979-2796 to make your pledge. Come on, that's 888-979-2796 to make that tax-deductible donation. And remember now, y'all, the African People's Education and Defense Fund is a U.S.-wide 501c3 nonprofit that also operates programs in Florida, including the Black Power 96.3 FM community radio station from where today's radio program is originating. Today's special program is also being simulcast on radio stations WGPY LP-FM in Gulfport, Florida, WXPP-LP-FM in Palmetto, Florida, and WULB-LP-FM in Sarasota, Florida, along with our dear friends in the world of live stream podcasts over on YouTube. We want to thank Dr. Wilmer Leon's Connecting the Dots channel on YouTube, Joy Mann, host of Savage Joy, and Garland Nixon, Ryan Napoli, and Caleb Malpin of the Center for Political Innovation.
Uhuru. And also want to salute all of the comrades in the chat. We see people saluting and saying Uhuru and that they have shared this broadcast. Next up, we're going to talk about the tornado recovery work that the community and the African People's Education and Defense Fund is organized, and let you know where your tax-deductible donations will go.
Immediately after the storm, the African People's Education and Defense Fund began to mobilize support and resources for neighbors in need, organized through their St. Louis partnership called the Black Power Blueprint. From the Uhuru House Black Community Center on 4101 West Florissant Avenue, they organized a drive for tools and supplies. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement also reached out to the white community of Southside St. Louis to win support and contributions from individuals, organizations, and businesses.
Sure did. They set up a charging station for people to bring their phones and their emergency devices, as well as a grill outside of the Gary Books Community Garden where they prepared and gave away hot food. I think I saw Comrade Siali who was cooking up on the grill. And a taste of what's going to be served is already at our Uhuru Bakery and Cafe. The volunteers brought chainsaws, handsaws, brooms, rakes, shovels, trash bags, and gloves to help with door-to-door cleanup. They continue to collect and distribute donations of water, non-perishable food items, and tarps, and ice, and coolers, and propane, and beauty. I feel like the lady who got beans, greens, potatoes, and tomatoes, but they brought all of those things, the batteries, the fans, first aid items.
Now, we want you to know that the African People's Education and Defense Fund is not some fly-by-night organization. It has been in operation since 1994. And the Black Power Blueprint and the nonprofit African People's Education and Defense Fund have invested over $1 million in the revitalization of St. Louis Northside over the past 7 years, and as part of our struggle for an independent, anti-colonial African economy. And before we dive any deeper, we want to take a moment to clarify something, and this is something for our new listeners joining us today. When we say African people, y'all, we're not just talking about people living on the continent of Africa. We mean all Black people, whether you're from St. Pete, St. Louis, Dominica, New Orleans, Jamaica, Chicago, Houston, Haiti, Trinidad, London, Atlanta, Inglewood, or even the Bronx. You name it. If your roots trace back to Africa, you're African. So in particular, it's a cultural identity that recognizes our shared history of colonialism, displacement, survival, flavor, and resistance. Come on now, you know it's not about geography. It's about unity here. And no matter where we are in the world, we're one people. We're one struggle. So the African People's Education and Defense Fund has acquired and renovated numerous dilapidated properties in North St. Louis, building a community center, low-income housing, a community garden, a farmer's market, and a state-of-the-art basketball court with plans underway for a women's health center and even an African independence workforce program for job training. The Gary Brooks Garden has become a model of sustainability and community resilience. Our over 1,000 pounds of fresh, healthy food is produced annually and given out free of charge to community members on Fridays during their harvesting months. And the garden has also played a critical role in neighborhood revitalization, turning once vacant land into a source of pride and connection. And we are honored to bring on today's broadcast the president of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, President Zene Yeshitela, direct from St. Louis, in the heart of that Black community hit by this tornado. Welcome, President Zene.
Uhuru, President Zene. So excited.
And while we're waiting there, we just want to again thank and invite everyone listening to this program on all the participating community stations or watching on the Burning Spear TV or over at any other participating, even the streaming platforms. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Yes, and consider making a tax-deductible donation to the St. Louis Northside Disaster Fund recovery work. This is the recovery work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, the 501c.3 nonprofit organization that also operates Black Power 96.3 FM radio station in St. Pete, Florida. And you can donate today by going to blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund. You can send a check to the St. Louis Uhuru House located at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, or you can call in to 888-979-2796 to make your pledge. That's 888-979-2796 to make your tax-deductible donation. Again, the African People's Education and Defense Fund is a U.S.-wide 501c3 nonprofit that also operates programs in Florida, including the Black Power 96.3 FM community radio station from where today's radio program is originating. So just want to thank those donors who also contributed. So go ahead and make that pledge. 888-979-2796. And just one more time, it's blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund.
And just like you said, y'all, that is 501c3 tax deductible. Make those tax deductible. Give what you can. We have to do it for ourselves. As you can see, you see that destruction. You saw all of the pain in the faces there. Let's help y'all. Right there at blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Defense Fund. Or you can call in at 888-979-2796 to make that pledge.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think we have our president ready. There she is. Uhuru, TC. Oh no, you look so incredible as usual. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I can't hear you
I
yet.
can hear
We're
you.
almost
That would be
okay.
helpful.
There we
There you
go.
Can you
go.
hear me?
Uhuru.
We can
Yes,
hear
we
you loud and clear. You hear
can.
you.
Oh my goodness. I just want to say I love this podcast. Y'all are doing the
Uhuru.
damn thing.
I love how you put us in motion and then you say you love our work. I love your leadership. That's what I love. I love your leadership.
How's everybody doing?
Doing good,
Doing
really
good.
worried about you. The colonial media is not covering what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen on the videos how you have been leading the way, taking charge, despite your little 5 foot frame, 5'2" frame.
Girl, please. I'll see you next week.
That's right. I'll carry the heavy stuff for you, DC. I got
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. How you
So
doing, Mariah?
How you
Uhuru?
doing? And we're just you're here. We're just so happy to have you here. And I just want to just to get a word of how can you just give us a talk about how the African People's Education and Defense Fund
Mm-hmm.
mission and how it's gone about carrying that out.
Oh my goodness. So I'm really fortunate to be the president of APDF. APDF has been around since 1994, so that's about 31 years in the making. And they have really made my job easy because when I came in back in 2010, a lot of things had already been created. So what I had to do was just really formalize everything and push everything forward. But our mission of APDF is one that I really, really appreciate is to defend the human and civil rights of the African community and create programs that speaks to the disparities in health, healthcare, education, and economic development. And we've been doing that, on the ground in St. Louis is our latest headquarters, but we've also been doing that in Florida and Philadelphia and in California. So here in St. Louis, since the murder of Mike Brown happened on August 9th, 2014, we've been on the ground. And I was sent to St. Louis back in 2017. And I was sent here with three goals in mind was to find a community center that we could rent out for people that had, for baby showers, weddings, anniversaries, all kinds of events. The second mission was to find a Uhuru Bakery and Cafe, so and then the third mission was to find a Uhuru Solidarity Center. So I met all three of those things, and then we had our plenary putting revolution back on the agenda back in 2017. And one of the missions that chairman said to me was that we had to seize territory. So I was like, okay,
Let's
let me
do
see how I
it.
can let me see how I can do that. So we learned about the LRA, which is the Land Utilization Authority, and it's a bank where they hold property that has been taken away from the African community due
Okay.
to taxes, code violations, or people just not being able to afford to live there any longer. So once I learned about the LRA, we started buying properties, and it just so happened the property next door to the Uhuru House was under that program. So we were able to purchase that land, and we made a beautiful state of the art outdoor venue. And we also created the Gary Brooks Community Garden. And the community garden is named after Gary Brooks, who lived in the house right next door. And he recently passed away last November. But let me just say, when I came here on the ground, I was here by myself, and Mr. Gary was so important in making everything happen for us. We had no light, we had no water, no nothing running in this building. This building had been sitting vacant for the last 30 years. So he ran an extension cord all the way from his building all the way over here to help us out. He cooked breakfast for us every morning, and he
Wow.
just really talked to us about what the community looked like before before now. And so then we moved on down the street. We purchased two other LRA properties and where we built a basketball court. the Vanguard basketball court, and we had many challenges with the city because they did not want to see economic development happen in this community. They wanted to let the city, let this community stay like it was. But we fought them tooth and nails, and we began just start renovating the fourplex. We brought the fourplex from a private owner, and this is where the African Independent Workforce Program is happening, where African men and women that's coming out of the prison system we'll be able to house them. And we're also creating a training program for them where they can be able to, the Uhuru Movement has 50 institutions, so they can be able to go into these various institutions and learn skills and take it back into the world so they can become whole again. Because, there's two things happens when you're in prison and you're coming out. One, you don't have employment. Two, you don't have a place to live. So everybody that we take on a tour to the fourplex, they be like, "Can I stay here?" Because it's so beautiful. It is so beautiful, and everything that APDF touches, we want to really give the best to the African working class. What else? So we built also. The bakery. We brought a 5,000 square foot building on Natural Bridge in Goodfellow, and it's going to take like $1.2 million to make that happen. So I decided that, look, there's a building right on the West Florissant corridor where we are already. Let's buy this building and, make the bakery happen. Little did we know, the building had already been like a restaurant for 20 years. But they're saying that we were putting a bakery in, so we needed a conditional use permit. So we were denied the conditional use permit because there was this North American in the community that did not want us to have, to do that. They did not want to bring food to a food desert. And so they fought us for 10 months. And finally, we got approved for the conditional use permit through an appeal process. So now we're in the process of making the bakery happen. We've laid the foundation. Tomorrow they're going to be putting up the new addition to the building. We just keep going on and on and on and on. We're going to be building a women's health center from the ground up. We've already raised $230,000 towards that. We have $200,000 to go. This whole corridor, we own about 12 properties on the west. We claimed it as the West Florissant corridor. So they're going to have to name this corridor Uhuru, So these are just some of the things that APDF has been doing since we've been on the ground for, less than, 8 years. So I'm really excited to be in the mix right now with the mission, carrying out the mission of APDF and the Black Power Blueprint. So I hope that gives you an idea of what we're doing. And that's
You
not
do,
even
and you
everything.
gave that idea, and I tell you, this is something that you got it going on. You got it going on.
Yes, yes,
You
you
got it
do.
going on, and your leadership, I tell you, from this women's center to this basketball, all of it, the bakery, you name it, and you're doing it, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you.
just want to
And just
say,
to say, before you say, I want to just shout out the leader of the Uhuru Movement, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who makes it very easy for me to do my job because, he writes everything and all I have to do is carry it out. So I just want to salute him and all the people in ODC, all the people in the Uhuru Movement, all of our donors, all of our supporters, people who are with us through thick and thin, because we had to fight every inch to get to where we are. So I just want to say that. Uhuru Jainabah.
so yeah, I just want to say I really salute just even how, when the call was to seize territory, when you went, you still incorporated the Mr. Gary Brooks, the people, you let the people lead. And that's, I mean, it's so profound, and it really speaks to, when you say defending the human and civil rights of the African community. First of all, we still got to fight for the civil rights. That's a whole, discussion in itself. But to see the leadership of not only Chairman Omali Yeshitela, but of UDC, Ona, Zene, Yeshitela, all, not just APDF. It makes me even think
Yes.
about how Philadelphia gave you an award, or gave the
Mm-hmm.
was that EPDF that got
Yes, it was. It was the
so the
city.
city of Philadelphia had to
Mm-hmm.
recognize you, and now you're transforming the city of St. Louis. All of the everywhere you touch, DC. I mean, it's like and the it just turns to gold.
Mm-hmm.
Uhuru.
Yes. Thank you
It
so much.
becomes liberated. You are
Yes.
liberating. Everywhere you
Yes.
go, you're just a liberator. I just appreciate that.
And I just want to say that too, that, we have a whole movement, so I just want, like I said, I really want to appreciate everybody in the movement that has taken a role in helping making this happen. Because we had people when we were painting, the whorehouse was being developed. We had the southern region come down, we had the northern region come down. We had different people from our movement come down to help support, the projects that we were building. So, you know, even though APDF was leading it, our whole movement embraced it, and just really took it on, and this is how we were able to develop so quickly here in St. Louis.
Mhm.
Oh, Uhuru. Okay,
Yeah.
President on his name. Now, tell me, we've gone through all the stuff that we have
Hmm.
going on over there, all the projects, all the stuff that, even before the tornado that was going on, the impact that the African People's Education and Defense Fund has really made on that St. Louis Northside community. Tell me, how has the local government been in support of that Black community's projects? Have you experienced, obstacles along the way? Have you been in
Hmm.
support? Can you speak to that a little?
Yes, I mean, from the day when I stepped out the plane, I had the names of all the all the people that were in on the West Florissant corridor. I knew their name. I had set up appointments with them to meet with them, and made a beautiful packet of what we wanted to do and who we were, especially being new to St. Louis. And let me tell you, these people did not want economic development on this side of town. We fought tooth and nail with the alderperson. We they had representatives come to the Uhuru House and said that we had to pay them, some kind of fee, to do business in this ward. When we started the basketball court, they said there would never be a basketball court on that corner where it is now, because one, that the people would, gangs would come there and they would have shootouts, between each other if we put a basketball court there, and that, it's not an ideal place to have it. And let me just say that since we put that basketball court there, I mean, it's been a beautiful thing. There's been no harassment of the community, only people coming there to play pickup ball, to come together and learn, and, just a real cultural place for the young kids. Because the reason why we put that court there was because right on that same street, there were kids playing in the street, with a makeshift basketball. So we decided, let's put a basketball court here to keep them out of the streets and keep them out of danger. We also was met with, when we started the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market, they did not want us to do it right here in the Hoover House, where we had to block off the street and have our vendors, on the sidewalk and in the street. They did not want that. So they imposed all these different fines that they did not impose on, like Tower Grove or any of the national parks on the south side. So, we just fought through. We said, we're going to, whatever it takes, we're going to make it happen. And we made it happen. And of course, the latest thing was the Bakery Cafe, which, like I said, we thought that we would, once we bought the building last year in January, that we would be open in June. But little did we know, 10 months later, we still was not open, and we had to fight the city tooth and nail. And just to say that we had 110 people on that call on the appeal hearing. We had 330 signatures from the community, from the north side as well as the south side. We had to hire an attorney. We had letters from the alderperson and also from the state representative. And we had 3 news medias in that meeting as well. And they said that they had never had that many people appeal hearing ever, and we won that victory. So we've been fighting the city since we stepped on the ground here in 2014. And as far as the economic work, since 2017, we've been fighting the city because they did not want economic development. They just still wanted to let the city, this community rot, So, yeah, we've been fighting. We fighters. Y'all know that.
I already know. Listen, and I was one of the persons on that live. I
Yeah.
was so proud. It was your statement was so tremendous. And then I read about it in the Burning Spear newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those are some of my favorite articles. And it really ties into the working platform, where it reads point number 2 of our platform says we want the right to economic development and
Mm-hmm.
creative and productive employment, which promote the needs and well-beings of our entire people. So that is what have been spearheading, and I'm just so proud to be under your leadership and the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Thank
So,
you.
All right, before we let you off the line here,
Mm-hmm.
can you tell us what can we expect next from the African People Education Defense Fund? Can you tell us outside of that tornado recovery efforts, what's needed? Speak to our audience. Tell us how can we help? How can they help?
Well, right now, our biggest program right now is this relief fund, because all of our institutions were, affected by the tornado, and plus, the chairman and I, we were displaced at our home. Our whole roof came off, and we lost the kitchen, we lost the bedroom, and comrades Siali and Ikenge, they live like 3 houses down from us. Their roof came out completely, and we're in the process of renovating this both places right now. So, and also at the Uhuru House, we have damage to the roof through the hail. The radio station 94.1 that's right next to the garden. We had just put a new roof on there. Maybe 4 months ago, and the whole roof came off, and all the rain came in and damaged the walls, and also the new flooring that we had on that. So, and then at the fourplex, the roof got damaged there. The basketball court, it's material called what you call sport court, and it's made out of rubber. So when the hurricane hit, the whole thing rolled up. Even the centerpiece where we have the Vanguard basketball logo at, the whole thing rolled up into pieces. So we got that repaired last workday. The bakery also had damage to it through the roof. So all of our institutions have been hit. Our personal homes have been hit. So this fund, is not for APDF, our personal use. It's for the community. So we've been out in the community for the last 16 days since the hurricane happened, doing work days, going to people's house. We had about 45 volunteers each day that we were out. This past Saturday, MPDOM got in the furniture truck, and they took out supplies to the community. And we just been cooking. We cooked 250 meals from a bakery and cafe. We gave out pies. We gave out diapers, formula, tarps, everything that is associated with the needs of the people when you are, have lost everything, because everybody power was off. We just got power back on in 3 days ago. So everybody is going back to their home just to find out that they've been slapped with a sticker. We got a red tag on our home saying that we could not enter our homes. Now, the only thing wrong with our homes is that, we need to put a roof on. Of course, we need to repair on the inside, but they never gave us an opportunity to even talk to them. They just came around with clipboards, putting these stickers on everybody's house saying that it was condemned and you can't go back in. Well, my house is not condemned. And then they threatened. Let me show you these are the different, these are the red tags. These are the tags that they're placing on people home to tell them not to go back in because it could be dangerous. But most people don't have any place to go. 70% of the people on the north side did not have insurance. So people are staying in their homes. They are sleeping, either inside or they have tents set up, because now when you put those stickers on there, that says to someone who wants to break in your home, okay, there's nobody there. So we we took the stickers off our house and we're there, and then they threatened also to turn the lights out on the people that got a red sticker. So, we're just fighting, want to put this out more in APDF. This is one of the projects that we're going to be taking on, dealing with the city with the red stickers that they've been putting on people's home that they probably can still live in it, but they need repairs done to it. So we'll be doing some of that. Also, like I said, we'll be, getting the bakery open. We're in the process of renovating it now. So yeah, we're just really, the main focus is taking on and helping the community through this tornado catastrophe.
Uhuru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uhuru. Well, I want to thank you, President Ona Zene. Just thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes.
I'm telling you, I just love this podcast. I really do.
Uhuru.
We love you. This podcast, One Africa Lab, loves you. And I want to say thank you for that tremendous and just this visionary work that you do. Thank you.
Well, we got a special announcement. I don't want to say yet, but we got something in the works that we want going to be announcing in the next 3 or 4 days that we're working on through APDF and the Black Power Blueprint. So keep your eyes out for that. I'm really excited about it, and it's going to really help change the conditions that these tornado victims are faced with right now.
Uhuru. Yeah. Always one step ahead. That's why they can't stand you. They usually a natural disaster will be an opportunity for the predator investors, the white community.
They're there. Can't hear her.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
That's odd. We want to make sure that we're hearing what you're saying.
Can't hear you.
Well, like I said, I just thank you for this powerful work that you're doing. Thank you for joining us over here today. And I mean, like I said, the tremendous and this visionary work, we can't speak enough to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Uhuru.
So we want to again invite everyone listening to this program on all of our participating community radio stations or watching on the Burning Spear TV or any other participating streaming platforms to please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the St. Louis Northside Disaster Fund recovery work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. You heard it, the 501c3 profit organization that operates Black Power 96.3 FM radio station over in St. Petersburg, Florida.
That's right.
All the work.
You can do that by donating to blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund. You send a check to the St. Louis Uhuru House located at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, or call in to 888-979-2796 to make your pledge. Uhuru.
The African People's Education and Defense Fund, remember y'all, is a 501c3 nonprofit that operates programs over in Florida, including that Black Power 96.3 FM community radio station from where today's radio program is originating. And we want to thank some donors.
And we want to thank our donors, Tammy Johnston, who donated $100, Ruby Gittleson, who donated $50, Allison Honey, who donated $100, Becky Kamal, MQ, who both donated $50, each donated $50, $25 coming from Sandy Forrest, $100 from Andrea Davis, $25 from Yindu, and $25 from John McCarthy. Uhuru.
Wow, thank you, Uhuru. So, with this massive disaster from the tornado over in St. Louis, with the devastation concentrated on the north side, as we keep saying, in the Black community, with estimates of nearly $2 billion, y'all, $2 billion in damage. You might hope that the government would jump right on in and use the tax dollars to help its residents. Wrong. Well, we're doing this fund drive today because we understand that has not been the case, and that the people have had to mobilize from the grassroots to address this crisis. So, to talk about what kind of actions have come from the city of St. Louis and what is needed, we are now joined by Christopher Gladney, president of the Northside Independent Neighborhood Association.
All right. Well, Uhuru, thank you for
Welcome to the
having me.
show. Uhuru, Christopher.
Guru.
We're so thankful to have you here. Just to speak to just the city's response here. Can you tell us what was that immediate response from the city? I mean, as far as that, we heard about the failure to sound those alarms and some of the curfews. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I'll put it to you like this. The immediate response from the city was really nothing at first. Um, and again, and as you just said, the most important aspect of it is that there was no siren. But a few hours before, they were testing the sirens. The sirens were heard. I was at another location doing work for Uhuru Foods and Pies at the time, and they were testing the sirens, and they were going off like every 10, 15 minutes. Now, fast forward, I'm still on errand for Uhuru Foods and Pies. I'm on the freeway, and next thing you know, I get an alert on my phone, and then like a minute later, hail is just pounding on the top of the Uhuru Foods van. And it was, I mean,
Wow,
basically
wow.
in the middle of the tornado.
In the middle of the
You
tornado.
know,
That's crazy. And we saw in neighboring Clayton that debris had been removed. Is the debris throughout the north side, like the north side Black community, been cleared, or has it been, now
well,
that it's been over 2 weeks?
I put it to you like this. The other initial response from the city was the community itself, the Black community. We self-deployed and got out there and started clearing the streets because a lot of buildings collapsed, completely collapsed from the tornado, and a lot of it fell into the streets. So people were cleaning up the bricks and things like that, blocking off certain streets because power lines were brought down. I saw transformers, on the ground because of that. But the community came out and cleaned up the trees, got, chainsaws out, and we're cutting the trees up and getting them off the sidewalks and so forth. And then, people were, bringing their food trucks around, giving free food to people and so forth. So the community came out and came together and made things happen. We wasn't waiting for the city because, the city has a history of ignoring the African community and has done it for decades, at least 50 years or more. Um, so the community said, let's do this. Let's make this happen because we're not waiting for the city government.
I got
Yeah.
a
And then,
question. Whose
yes,
idea was it to put you on the grill?
well, generally, I'm the one that does the cooking. Uh, so, so yeah, yeah. I mean, it was really a fun day. We were, cooking up, hot dogs, hamburgers, and we had some vegan strips, vegan jerk, and vegan burgers, and we had the pies out there, and people were coming up and getting burgers and just thanking us,
Yeah.
just really thanking us for what we're doing, our support and everything. And yeah, I mean, we had to show the community love and show us what we're all about, show them
Yeah.
what we're all about, because the city didn't really do anything. Um, I mean, Kara Spencer, who's the mayor there, um, really, she didn't get on the phone and say, "Hey, Governor Kehoe, you know, get get Trump off his butt and sign the papers so we
Yeah.
can declare this a disaster area and get these, monies to, get things going." But here's the kicker about the whole thing. Um, the city of St. Louis right now, through the ARPA funds that they've been sitting on since 2020, The RAM settlement money and the subsequent um, interest of that and the city's surplus comes out to $952 million.
Wow.
Um, yes. So, and they're not getting up off that money, and that's one of the demands that we have is that they need to get up off that money so that the Black community in particular can start the repairs of our properties and so forth. But then the city's also got this gangster move that they've been pulling for a long time, and that is, let's just say a contractor says, okay, it's going to cost $10,000 to fix
Mhm.
your house, and then you get your insurance company to get you that money. The city of St. Louis takes 25% of that off the top. So that's
Wow.
$2,500 the city is getting off of your assessment for the repairs. So now you're stuck.
You
And if
stuck.
you're
Wow.
rent tag, and if your building is rent tag,
Mhm.
that puts you in an even worse situation because not only, can they get you out your house, but again, they can take your house from you.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, Christopher. Now, what we keep hearing about these red tags, red tags. What are
Hmm.
those red tags actually all about?
The red tag essentially states that the building inspector has done a visual inspection of the outside of the building, and has deemed it that the damage is severe to the building, so that you should not enter the building. And basically, when they started red tagging buildings, they were saying, okay, if you enter the building, you can get arrested. And also, because they red tagged the building, you had 10 days to get out of there. But then Kara Spencer came on and said, no, 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 we're not doing that. We're not kicking people out their homes and yada, yada, yada. But essentially, that's what it really means. It
Mm-hmm.
allows for these speculators and predators that are actively driving through the communities. I saw one this morning on my way to a doctor's appointment, sitting, looked like they were speculating and a white couple just speculating.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
um, and one of the things of Nina is that one, we want to promote and protect the welfare, health, and safety of the members of the neighborhood through collective action, communication, and collaboration. That's
Mm-hmm.
our prime. That's one of our primary missions in Nina. So again, we want people to keep their homes, because the North Side, unfortunately got hit by this Team 4 project that came out in the early 70s, led by the Rand Corporation, which basically has three tenets to it. And one is, you know, to, well, I forget the first, it's conservation, and then revitalization is the second tenet. So conservation is basically where, the neighborhood's in good order. Uh, um, the other one is basic. Okay, it's starting to slip a little bit. We need to fix it up. And then the third tenet of it is depletion. So they picked the north side. They literally had to pick, and they said, "Well, let's pick the north side as the depletion zone."
Mm.
So they take resources out of the community. They've been doing it for over 50 years or more. Take resources out. So guess what happens? Property values drop, and the buildings are left to rot. Again, that let it rot policy. So that way white developers can come in for a song and buy up whole swaths of land and redevelop it, and then guess what? Property values shoot sky high.
Sky high. Sky
And
high.
then over the past 10 years, like 30,000 or more Africans have been displaced out of North St. Louis.
Mm. Mm.
you know so yeah, that red tag is bad news if
Bad
you're a
news.
homeowner and you're
Mm.
trying to get your place fixed up. And then on top of that, that $2,500 off the top cut to the city, that's the gangster move if I ever heard one. um but also the mayor saying, oh well, she's going to try and see if she can get that taken off the books, and this, that, and the other. But the fact remains is that the black community in North St. Louis have been neglected for a long time, and they did it intentionally.
Did it
And
intentionally.
so the devastation that you see um, was made worse by the Team 4 project and the Let It Rock policy, because you couldn't tell whether the tornado hit then or now, just by the conditions that we see. And I drove through certain areas like Newstead Avenue. It's like several buildings flat, just disintegrated. Um, People, that lost everything, and on top of everything, um, the siren, the button wasn't pushed. They said the button was broken at the fire department. The SEMA office, where this woman named Sarah Russell, who was the commissioner for the SEMA office, she and other people, staff members, were in a training. So nobody was minding the store and was near the button to press the button. So she said, "Well, the fire department, can you press the button?" He said, "Okay." Come to find out, they tried to press the button at the fire department and wouldn't have worked. And they've known that they've had a problem with the button for many years and have done nothing about it. You know,
Unacceptable.
they yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Again, it's a bad situation, but one thing I have to say is that the African community showed out in a good way, came together and started helping do cleanup and cutting down trees and things like that. And basically donating their vehicles to help transport some of the debris out of the community. And they wanted to make the community pay for getting the debris out of the community and to a particular area to dump that debris. And it's like, no, 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 you can't do that.
Mm-mm.
It's
Can't
not
do
our
it.
responsibility. But guess what? It is our responsibility. We have to do it for ourselves. You
You have to
said
do
that
it for,
earlier, Dr.
yeah.
Mariah. We have to do it for ourselves because we cannot trust the city to do right by the Black community. We have to do it by ourselves. And that's why NINA was formed 5 months ago, is because we've seen how other neighborhood associations and how the city government has been treating, or I should say, mistreating the African community. And we said, no, we need to break up these little fiefdoms and all the separation that's caused by the fact that you have College Hill neighborhood, and you have the Fairground neighborhood over here, and you have the O'Fallon neighborhood, and you have the Penrose and Hyde Park, and we want to collaborate together so that College Hill doesn't benefit at the expense of everybody else. Everybody
Right,
can
right.
benefit,
Right,
so.
right. You said it best there. We want our people to take care of our people. So, and
That's
we
right.
have to do it ourselves. So, before we go here, Christopher, can you tell us what does your constituents over at NINA, the Northside Independent Neighborhood Association, what do you need now? How can we help?
We need people to join, because the more people that join, and just to say, membership is free for 2025. So
Okay.
people can join for free, because the more bodies we have, the more work that we can do, to not only help people out of this situation, but on down the line, making sure that the communities are safe, the communities are healthy, there's economic development happening in the best possible way, and we want to make sure that everybody's represented in that regard. But also too, there's donations that can be gotten as far as generators, both gas and solar power. Because again, we spent at least over a week without power. So a
Wow.
lot of people lost food in the refrigerators. I saw on the news once, this African man that just bought hundreds of dollars worth of food, and it all went bad because there was no
Wow.
power for days.
Wow. Wow.
You
Wow.
um, people need, there are a lot of people right now that are displaced. They have no place to go to.
Yeah.
So we need camping type equipment, butane burners, butane fuel, things like that, because people have to be able to cook. People have to be able to to lay their head, and they're not housing anybody. FEMA is in town, but they can't do anything except make an assessment of the damage, because again, Trump has to sign a federal order saying that, okay, funds and other things,
Mhm.
FEMA can do what it needs to do. Um, And yeah, it's a bad situation, but it's up to us as Nina, as the Black community, to take it on, because we see, historically, we see that the city governments are not going to do right by the Black community. We have to do it ourselves.
We have to do it ourselves, Christopher. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I mean, know that we are with you, supporting
Right
your
on.
courageous and this tireless work that you do. And I
Yes.
mean, just thank you so much.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Well, today's special program is also being simulcast on radio stations WGPY-LP-FM in Gulfport, Florida, WXPP-LP-FM in Palmetto, Florida, and WULB-LP-FM in Sarasota, Florida. Along with our dear friends in the world of live stream podcasts over on YouTube, we want to thank Dr. Wilmer Leon's Connecting the Dots channel on YouTube, Joy Mann, host of Savage Joy, and Garland Nixon, Ryan Napoli, and Caleb Maupin of the Center for Political Innovation.
That's right. Well, we know that the people will pull together. We know that people will solve the problems, whether we're located in St. Louis or St. Pete or anywhere within the reach of this broadcast. And I encourage everyone listening to this program on all of the participating community radio stations, or if you're watching on the Burning Spear TV or any of the participating streaming platforms, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the St. Louis Northside Disaster Fund recovery work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, the 501c3 nonprofit organization that also operates Black Power 96.3 FM radio station in St. Pete, Florida. You can do that by donating online to blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund, or you can send a check to the St. Louis Uhuru House, located at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, or just call in to 888-979-2796 to make your pledge. Again, that's 888-979-2796 to make your tax-deductible donation. And when you go to the blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund, you'll see that we have an overall goal of raising $25,000 for tornado recovery, and that we've received donations totaling 37% of that goal. This broadcast today has so far raised $750 towards that goal. So let's see if we can get that up to $1,000 today and do our part to support this critical work to rebuild our community in St. Louis. And I want to give a really big thanks to everyone who has just donated. That includes an anonymous 50 donations that we just got from the website. Pity has contributed $50 on the website. MQ again with a $100 contribution to our website. Len Bajek, who donated $25. I want to salute you with an Uhuru. In addition to the previous donors of John McCarthy and Yindu, Andrea, Sandy, MQ, Becky, Allison, and Ruby. So yeah, I just really want to thank all of those comrades and remind everyone that you're listening to or watching a very special 2-hour episode of the One Africa Worldview Podcast this week, dedicating to letting you know about the history-making impact of the major tornado that hit North St. Louis 2 weeks ago. And we want to invite you to support the massive recovery effort that's underway. I'm Jainabah Lumumba. I'm here with Dr. Mariah Bond, and we are two of the regular hosts for the One Africa Worldview Podcast, which airs weekly on the Burning Spear TV channel on YouTube and Rumble, as well as Black Power 96.3 FM radio station in St. Pete, Florida, which is a project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. Again, the baddest nonprofit on the planet.
The baddest nonprofit on the planet. So, since this tornado, the Uhuru House in North St. Louis has hosted community meetings to address that tornado recovery. And here's what some of the local residents had to say. First up is Karen Greer, a longtime business owner in the community.
But my heart was hurt. I cried. I literally cried going down these streets. These are people's families. These are people's parents. Properties that they wanted to leave to their children. Gone. It took me a year and a half to get insurance on a commercial building that I had been working on for this very community, paying taxes on it, making sure that I'm keeping up the maintenance on it. Only to see that when we apply for grants or funding to rebuild or to restore or to revitalize our communities, we get nothing. We get the doors closed in. We get smoke and mirrors, but we don't get the change that is desperately needed in this community. We need all of that grants money, not some of it. We need all of it. The impact of North St. Louis is historical. No other parts of St. Louis look like North St. Louis.
That's right.
Many parts of St. Louis have been affected for decades, for centuries, like North St.
That's
Louis.
right.
We're talking about our North St. Louis, Hyde Park, O'Fallon.
That's right.
All right, the reality that there are two Americas and there's two St. Louises split by what is called the Delmar Divide is very, very clear. The ongoing assault on the Black community is made obvious, and the disaster we're experiencing on the North Side is anything but natural. It is orchestrated colonial violence, and together we can overcome this. And here's Chairman Omali Yeshitela breaking it all down in a pop-up broadcast that he did on the day after the tornado hit.
You probably are aware that a tornado came through St. Louis, and this tornado had a devastating impact on the city. But what you probably are not aware of, certainly you would not have learned that through the media, that despite the fact that they talk about $1 billion worth of damage being done by the tornado, what they don't say is that this tornado, the damage was concentrated in the African community in North St. Louis. That's really important for everybody to understand. The city would not make that obvious, would prevent this information from easily get out in the media, which is nothing but a ruling class colonial media, which generally speaking contributes to this lack of understanding and lack of knowledge of what's happening. So there are people who obviously want to do something about this and respond to it, just like any other kind of charitable cause. But they do so without recognizing that the $1 billion that they talk about repairing situation here in St. Louis subsequent to the tornado is $1 billion that's necessary in the African community. It's the African community that bore the brunt of this assault. So 3 days ago, you may have participated with me as I walked through the African community, starting on Redbud Avenue, which is where I live. 44 Bud is often referred to as, in the past, been characterized as one of the most economically depressed sectors of the city of St. Louis and in North St. Louis. But it's hard to find one place in North St. Louis that's bad as compared to other places in North St. Louis. The city initiated a program in 1972 that was called Team 4. It was something that paid a major entity to provide for them. And this was a program of economic development that was based on developing white St. Louis at the expense of the African community. And this was an actual policy. And people who are interested in this can actually Google Team 4 or T4 as it relates to St. Louis. It was an actual policy to, they called it Let It Rot policy, a policy that's been referred to as benign neglect for the Black people, the Black community here, the African community here in St. Louis. And as a consequence of that, even entire communities within North St. Louis, African communities have been wiped out, destroyed, purposely, consciously. Hospitals, the first African hospital west of certainly a school with teaching medical care and what have you, west of the Mississippi was right here in St. Louis. That was destroyed. Schools, generally speaking, other schools, Sumner School, which is one of the extraordinary schools that existed in this country for African people, right here in St. Louis, it was wiped out. Entire communities, as I mentioned, there's the St. Louis University occupies the property where an entire African community once was. There's a mall that is now standing where an African community once was. So within the last several years, within the last 10 years, something like 30,000 African people have been pushed out of the city of St. Louis. So there's the policy that's been going on. This happened before the tornado came through. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, to recognize that the tornado was devastating. I mean, homes were blown away, tops of buildings blown away, et cetera. And as I mentioned, it's hard for anybody outside of St. Louis and sometimes inside St. Louis to recognize that this was concentrated in the African community. So I wanted to just say that. I think it's important for you to know it, for all of us to know that. When I walked through the community 3 days ago with other members of our movement and our party, we were able to show some of the devastation, the trees which have been ripped up, and even some of them which were surrounded by sidewalks. The sidewalks and the trees were ripped up, massive trees, not just small trees. Whole tops of buildings were destroyed in our community. So as I said, this is something that happened in the African community. The attempt is going to be made to characterize what has happened as something that was simply an act of nature. And of course, we can say that the tornado was something that was provided by nature, but the devastation that impacted the African community was not all due to nature. Much of it as a consequence of the political decisions that were made by the government, that were made by particular politicians, black and white, who serve a colonial government at the expense of the African community. For example, I just mentioned the Team 4 policy designed to let this community rot. There, you could have thought a tornado or some other kind of devastating act had been committed. Even it looked like a war zone in North St. Louis. This is the place where the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement have been building since 2014 to lift up, to bring the people into political motion, to activate the skills and passions and desire for freedom of our community, and to create the organization to be able to make our community better. We started that process, and this was the thing that made it necessary for us to do this, the conditions here. So this was before the tornado. And I want to mention this because all of us should understand that, everybody watching this should understand this, that there's a long-term interest that we have to have in uplifting our communities, to changing the conditions of our community, to change the circumstances of our lives as African people, whether here in the United States or in Africa or various other places in the world where we are located. Any place Africans are, the conditions are similar. And any place where we exist, you will find that it looks like a tornado has been through some other kind of what would be characterized as natural and sometimes even war zones, it looks like in our communities normally and naturally. And so we are in a situation where initially when the hurricane first came through, something like 100,000 homes lost power, were without power. I understand that today that's down to about 49 or 50,000 homes that are without power. And perhaps later on tonight, the power will be restored for most of the community. But the problem, and the thing is that the city has brought in forces from different states to participate in bringing up the lights and the power here. But the politicians had made a decision that allowed certain conditions to exist in the African community that contributed to the devastation, contributed to the amount of power that's out. For example, nature may be responsible for the tornado, but the government is the one that allowed these rotten wooden entities that function to carry electricity on these poles. That's absolutely unnecessary. The poles could not withstand anything that looked like the wind that came through here. I think up to 160 or more mile per hour winds came through, snapped those poles as like sticks. And of course, when they snapped the poles, live wires were everything, and lights went out. The power was lost. And even as I'm talking to you now, I'm propped up in a situation in our office on West Florissant in sweltering heat because there is no power here, having to part the curtains, hopefully effective enough so that I can be seen. The city did that. The government did that. Nature did not make those decisions. The government made those decisions. And I'm saying this because we see throughout St. Louis an extraordinary activity and movement by the people. The people have come out on yesterday. Something like 40 some odd volunteers worked with our movement under our movement alone. We've been collecting goods for the people. We've been collecting water and toilet tissue and lights. We've established charging stations so that people can come using our generators to charge their phones and their other devices so that they can communicate. So this is the kind of stuff we've been doing. We cooked food and provided food, but you've got throughout the African community, you see people coming out, acting in similar ways. They are cooking and they are passing out resources. They're driving through the communities and passing out water. These are ordinary people from the communities doing this. So the people, have an inclination all the time to solve the problems in the community. And this is something that's happened immediately. But the difference is the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru Movement are not just involved in dealing with extraordinary events. The ordinary conditions of colonialism is something that we work with all the time. And so sooner or later, whatever resources the people have and are able to share, they won't be there. They talked about needing $1 billion to repair things here, but they're not talking about $1 billion for the African community. If they were talking about $1 billion for the African community, at least half that amount of money is already available, has been available. Money that came from COVID relief, more than $100 million, something like the amount of money that came from the sale of the Rams that they're holding on to, not doing anything for the African community. Instead, they're asking the people to come and donate to the city, as opposed to the city releasing those resources that should be coming naturally and normally to the African community. They continue to attempt to starve this community. And we are the organization that has been involved since 2014 and certainly since 2017 in driving economic development in this most impoverished community. Up and down West Florissant, which is a major corridor on the one hand, but a corridor that goes through the African community now, and an African community that they've decided that they're going to allow it to rot, that benign neglect was going to happen, where thriving businesses used to be here, but the people have been pushed out. Like I said, something like 30,000 African people have been pushed out of St. Louis in the last 10 years or so. But we are the party. We came here and we organized in this city. Our headquarters is now located here. We've organized people in this city of St. Louis to move to deal with our contradictions. And this was before the tornado. This is all the time. This is because we understood that the masses of our people had to be liberated. We have to have the capacity to feed, clothe, and house ourselves.
Uhuru. That was Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the Chairman Omali Yeshitela. For our radio listeners in the greater St. Petersburg, Tampa area, many may be familiar with Chairman Omali, formerly known as Joseph Waller, who was a field organizer with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, registering Black voters way back in 1960. He has gone on since then to build the Uhuru Movement throughout the world, and today is headquartered in North St. Louis, although the Uhuru House in South St. Petersburg, Florida remains a vital hub of community activity and houses the Black Power 96.3 FM community radio station. Chairman Omali talked about the St. Louis Team 4 official strategy of decades of benign neglect intended order to facilitate removal of the Black population by withholding infrastructure investment on that north side. leaving the Black community vulnerable to tornado devastation over and over again.
Yep. I mean, on the north side, thousands of properties are owned by the city's land reutilization authority, which is a government entity that literally holds properties obtained through tax foreclosures, and it works under the St. Louis Development Corporation to, quote, facilitate real estate development and perform land assemblage for future development. The deteriorated condition of those old buildings left the whole community vulnerable to flying brick and metal and wooden debris in last week's 150-mile-an-hour winds. Rotten electric wooden poles snapped like matchsticks, spewing live wires directly into the street. And this is why it's so important for us to pull together and support the work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund in rebuilding North St. Louis. So I encourage everyone who's listening in on this program on all of the participating community radio stations, or if you're watching on the Burning Spear TV or any of the participating streaming platforms, to please consider making a tax-deductible donation to the St. Louis Northside Disaster Fund recovery work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, the 501c3 nonprofit organization that also operates Black Power 96.3 FM radio station in St. Pete, Florida. Again, you can do that by donating online to blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund. Send a check to the St. Louis Uhuru House located at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, or call in to 888-979-2796 to make your pledge. Again, that's 888-979-2796 to make your tax-deductible donation. Earlier, we heard from APDF President Zene Yeshitela stating that the building set to house our sister LPFM community radio station coming soon to St. Louis on 94.1 lost its roof in the tornado. Your donation is going to help repair that building and prepare it to house another powerful radio station with a voice that's the voice of our community.
Wow. And we just want to give a real big thank you to the donations that are coming in. And just taking a look here, we want to kind of give a shout out to Lisa Watson for that $50 donation, Penny Arcos for that $25 donation, Akile Anae for $50 donation. We have a $50 anonymous, Penny Hess for $50, MQ again, $100, Lynn, John. We have Andrea, Sandra Forrest, MQ, Becky, Alice, and Ruby. Just the donations are coming in. And just how we said, don't stop with them. We need it there. We need to support this. And you could donate online at blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund, or send that check over to St. Louis Uhuru House at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, or call that number at 888-979-2796 to make your pledge there.
So, Mariah, do you want to go ahead and tell the people about the Todd Plan? Or you know what? Let me just go ahead and give them a quick briefing. Since we're talking about the need for change in St. Louis and how we can help in the aftermath of the devastating tornado, one former St. Louis alderman, Jesse Todd, has put forward a plan to strengthen and to repair the St. Louis Black community on the north side, even before this tornado. There have been renewed calls for the city of St. Louis to adopt this Todd Plan, which calls for 1, jobs for all who want a job and guaranteed annual income for the disabled and elderly. 2, drug treatment on demand. 3, vacant houses that are boarded must have all the windows and doors boarded up on every floor at the owners or the land reutilization authorities, called the LRA's, expense. 4, money used to tear down the houses will be given to families to fix up vacant housing. 5, code enforcement must be the same for vacant houses as it is for occupied homes. 6, if the LRA property is not sold within a year, it will be sold to an individual for $1. The individual will be given grants to fix up the property. 7, tax credits and or grants will be given to families, not big developers, to fix up the vacant houses. 8 seniors, disabled, and low-income homeowners will be given grants to make needed home repairs. 9, grass on lots, alleys, and vacant buildings will be cut and trimmed as needed. The trash will be cleaned off of the property at the owner's expense. And 10, the parks will have supervision, equipment, and supplies. These are the kinds of changes that must be made on a systemic basis to strengthen our Black community to withstand things like the recent tornado.
And there's also a call for local Black contractors to be awarded and paid for the necessary cleanup and rebuilding of this. And one such contractor, Patrick Jefferson, who has done extensive work on property renovations for the African People's Education and Defense Fund, attended a recent community meeting and had this to say.
But my heart was hurt. I cried. I literally cried going down.
And, I've seen it on other people's face, like the surprise and things and the shock, but it was kind of, for some reason, kind of like a natural, just felt kind of natural. Although I'd never been in a tornado, it felt kind of natural, but I seen that I was in shock and didn't know it. Although it felt natural, I was in a shock because I look up and here it is, I'm stuck with hundreds of people not moving. Thank God I ride with my chainsaws and things of that nature. And people actually got to work minutes after when the tornado hit. Nothing planned, nothing desired, just a reaction to survival. But after that, seeing that, a lot of people said dormant, seeing that we didn't have resources of the city coming in, responding in the way that we like. We continue to help each other and build on each other. But for us to see that and then react different, saying that, we still patronizing, sending our money outside the community and things that, people that didn't respond to help us, it's like we got control of a lot of things that we're giving other people control of. We can build these communities of, I can do what I do as one person in one block to help keep this whole block maintenance. And I'm one person using my own resources with whatever little dollar I make. And what you hear, look, this West Florissant was towed down, and towed down. This was before the tornado hit. And, we see the progress that's being made. So if we keep putting time, energy, and resources into what we see that's working, instead of, hoping, this mayor get in, gonna do something, and this person get in, gonna do something. Let's support the people that we see right now that's doing stuff, that's active, and put into that we see a system that works. The system of what we seeing that's going on right here within West Florissant, what we're doing, this can apply to the whole city. We mobilize and get out, and do that. And I'm pretty sure that's going to continue to happen, as we work together and move forward. But oh my God, I don't, it's something different. I'm grateful to have, the Uhuru Movement and brothers that
Uhuru, see, I believe, just like he does, that we can turn things around. We could build a positive future for everybody that's in the St. Louis communities. And I encourage everybody that's listening to this program on all of the participating community radio stations, or if you're watching on a Burning Spirit TV or any of the participating streaming platforms, please make a tax-deductible donation to the St. Louis Northside Disaster Fund recovery work of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. It's the 501c3 nonprofit organization that also operates Black Power 96.3 FM radio station in St. Petersburg, Florida. Do that by donating online to the blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund. Send a check to the St. Louis Uhuru House located at 4101 West Florissant Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri, or call in to 888-979-2796 to make your pledge. Uhuru.
The African People's Education and Defense Fund is a USC-wide 501c3 nonprofit that also operates programs in Florida, including the Black Power 96.3 community radio station. And this is how we keep saying, this is where the program is originating. We want to give a big thank you to all those donations that are steadily coming in. We have new donations from Celiana, Lisa, Penny, Akile, Penny, again, MQ, just they're steadily coming in, and thank you for that support there. Now, just taking a look, we want to say that the local organizers over in St. Louis have found that when traveling to that South Side white community, it's very clear that the full extent of that tornado's damage isn't known to them because they didn't really experience it in the same way. And unlike our neighborhoods, there's regular work to maintain their community, including protective measures against tornadoes. And we're joined now by Penny Hess and Jesse Nevel, live from St. Louis. Penny is chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Jesse Nevel is chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, both dedicated to organizing for reparations from the white community to the programs of the Black Power program. Welcome, Chairman Penny and Chair Jesse.
Uhuru!
Uhuru.
Can you hear us? Yes, Uhuru, Dr. Mariah, Uhuru Jainabah. It is so exciting to be here with you today. Great show.
Yes.
I'm very moved by the statements by Deputy Chair Zene Yeshitela and just all the incredible leadership that the chairman has taken on in the middle of this crisis and brought it, to a higher level. It's been very much of an honor to be here and to be part of, under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Well, Jesse, I heard you recently talking about the expansion of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency in North St. Louis and how this has contributed to the gentrification and the militarization of the Black community there. Now, can you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Uhuru, Dr. Mariah and Comrade Jainabah. It's also just want to express what an honor it is to be on here with you on the One Africa Worldview Podcast with Chairwoman Penny Hess, and salute all of the guests and speakers up to this point. And every episode of this podcast has been incredible. So I'm just really, really happy and honored to be here from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, working for white reparations to African people. And yes, just really quick, as you mentioned, this is something that Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Movement have been exposing from day one when the city announced that they were going to be moving the location of the so-called NGA West, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, here in St. Louis, to the Northside. The Uhuru Movement was out there before they even broke ground, holding signs saying no way to the NGA. And the NGA, as you mentioned, this is a secretive CIA military spy agency that's been around for a very long time. They have a headquarters in Virginia, and they have had a headquarters in St. Louis in another location, which they are now relocating. They have relocated. They're planning to open in September in the Northside through a process, like the chairman said, the devastation didn't start with the tornado. The NGA was yet another example of the city using eminent domain to force hundreds of African families out of their homes on land that had already been the site of forced population removal going back to Mill Creek Valley. And over again, this happens in the city of St. Louis under the colonial local government. And what this spy agency is used to do is they claim they map the world, and they do. They coordinate all of the military coordination required for drone strikes in places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, occupied Palestine, where they've coordinated the assassination of resistance leaders there, and also present a serious force of gentrification in North St. Louis, pushing African people out. And I'll just close by saying the original construction of the NGA was about 100 acres that they moved African people, they forced African people off of. Then they expanded it to another 1,000 acres of area that any development that happens in that area is subject to review by the NGA. So it's an incredibly insidious colonial attack. and part of what the Black Power Blueprint is working to negate and overturn.
Wow, incredible there. And just kind of looking at it, Penny, you've been organizing support from the white community for Black community programs for almost 40 years now, 40 long years. Why do you even support the Black community's call for reparations?
Uhuru, Dr. Mariah. I think that we don't even have to look further than everything that happened in this current tornado to see how the city of St. Louis moved against the African community, and why the African community was vulnerable to this attack, which was literally an attack. Not a natural disaster, as the chairman was saying. And on the same day, a tornado touched down in the suburbs, in the white suburbs, upper class suburbs, with nothing, almost zero damage done. A few trees were down. They got rid of that the next day. But this community, where this city, and we could go back to the history of St. Louis over and over and over again, it has done everything possible to destroy the African community for the clear stated purpose to forward the interests of the white community. Mm-hmm. That has been what the chairman referred to in his statement as the Team 4 plan in the 1970s. So yeah, it's very serious.
And like you said, to forward the white community. And this question is really for either one of you. Speaking of the white community, what has the white community over in St. Louis done? What has it done to support this recovery effort of the tornadoes?
Well, I think that it's really important to note that some people, some comrades from the white community did bring resources and have sent in resources, financial resources, and different groups from the white community brought big boxes of food, like the kind you would get at Costco or something, not just like a few snack things, but just tons of boxes that can be distributed to the community. So I think I really think that that's powerful, that there are white people that want to take a stand. There's this thing here in St. Louis called the Delmar Avenue Divide, where you cross one street and you go from incredible prosperity of the white community into North St. Louis, which has 16 cents for every dollar that the white community has. And it's very stark and dramatic to see that, but what the party is doing is building economic development on the North Side for the African community to live in the same conditions that white people live in. And it's really powerful, the struggle to see it, to see the work that Deputy Chair Ona has done, building the basketball court and all of these various institutions that on the West Florissant corridor, which is so beautiful. They should rename the street, Uhuru Street, etc. But it's very powerful.
It's certainly powerful there. And like you said, yeah, let's rename that street. We want it Uhuru Street. We want that now. Mm-hmm. Now, this question is for either one of you also. Now, when it comes to reparations and that Black community, and we spoke to it a little, what does reparations actually look like?
All right, Jesse.
For real. That is such a great question. It really ties back to the question you asked a moment ago as well, that Chairwoman Penny was addressing. Because, there were different organizations on the North Side putting out calls for volunteers. And, there were white people. I think it's true. White people want to take a stand right now and support the North Side African community. So white people were coming in and volunteering in various ways. But the white people who came out and volunteered with the Black Power Blueprint and the Uhuru Movement, that was different, because that was not a stand of charity. That was a stand of reparations to African people and solidarity with the right of African people to have political and economic power over their lives and resources. So reparations is a revolutionary demand, as Chairman Omali Yeshitela says, that means repairing the damage of centuries of ongoing colonial oppression, slavery, genocide perpetrated against African people, whether in the open enslavement of African people that built this system, or the ongoing enslavement and oppression of African people in many forms, whether it's through mass incarceration, gentrification, police terror and murder against African people, health disparities, infant and maternal mortality, all of the other conditions that represent the legacy and ongoing existence of the colonial mode of production. So reparations means white people can join the rest of humanity and exit our self-imposed isolation, as the chairman says, from the rest of humanity, and unite with the oppressed peoples of the world in fighting for a world without oppression and exploitation. And that's why our slogan is unity through reparations.
Okay, and this question here is for either one of you also. What do you suggest our audience do? What do they do? How do they support? What can they do to contribute to this effort?
Well, we would call on everybody that can, first of all, to donate to Black Power Blueprint / say the second part.
Northside Disaster Fund.
Northside Disaster Fund. Yes, you've been having that out there, and I know this is a fundraiser for that powerful campaign. And that is one thing that we would call on people to do. And certainly we would call on everybody from the white community who is listening to this to join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And they can go to uhurusolidarity.org and become part of this growing US-wide organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, working in the white communities with 3 important principles of unity. And maybe, Jesse, you could just quickly say what they are.
Absolutely. So the principles of unity of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement are: 1, that we work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party; 2, that we organize in the white community for reparations to African people; and 3, that we stand in solidarity with African self-determination. So if you believe in those principles of unity, you should already be a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And if you're not, you should go to uhurusolidarity.org and become a member today.
Uhuru.
Wow, you heard it there. You heard how to join, you heard how to support, and you heard how important this movement is here. And you just want to thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny and Chair Jesse, for joining us here. Just so thankful for your joining us, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Uhuru. Thank you, Uhuru. We are winning.
We are winning. And I'm very proud because we are just $110 short of our $1,000 goal. So let's reach $1,000. Please go now to blackpowerblueprint.org/Northside Disaster Fund and help us reach this goal. We heard earlier in this program from APDF President Zene Yeshitela that the building set to house our sister LPFM community radio station coming soon to St. Louis on 94.1 lost its roof in the tornado. So your donation will help to repair that building and prepare it to house another powerful radio voice in our community. And as we prepare to close our program, we want to bring on one of our dear friends and podcasters, Dr. Wilmer Leon, longtime speaker, author, and host of Connecting the Dots on YouTube. Welcome, Dr. Leon.
We can't hear you just yet. Can you repeat?
Okay, let's try that.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Good evening to you all, and to all those listening, watching, paying attention.
Uhuru, yes, I love your show, and I want to thank you so much for sharing this radiothon on your channel. Really appreciate your ongoing support and your really important work in getting the information and the analysis out as a longtime journalist. So I want to start with asking, what are your thoughts on the struggle for Black power and self-determination for our community in St. Louis?
Well, this is a phenomenal program, and this is a phenomenal example of why our self-empowerment is so important. It would be a wonderful thing if the city, if the state were to treat all elements of the community the same. If the responses to the needs were all the same. Obviously, they are not. This idea of a let it rot policy, this idea of state, what I was making the notes of state sponsored gentrification demonstrates very clearly that the city slash state, and I use state as a lowercase s, not a capital S, we're operating again in the best interest of all citizens. Obviously, they are not. This is why we have to take care of ourselves. And by taking care of ourselves, we are then defending ourselves.
That's right. I mean, and especially in a case where, the city government forgot to push the button, I think that's absolutely absurd and unacceptable.
I don't know. Well, first of all, one would wonder, why wasn't this process automated? So they're relying on some person like sitting in a chair with a finger on the button saying, should I push it now? Should I push the button now? No, Bill, don't push it now. Okay, can I push it? No, Bill, don't push it now. Okay, if this were Mayberry and if this were 1950 and you're waiting on Barney Fife, okay. But in 2025, I think there's something called automation, which folks needed to be paying attention to. So with that being the point, then that demonstrates to me an even greater sense of obligation and responsibility. Where is the city of St. Louis coming to the Northside saying, we blew it, we messed it up, we are going to take it upon ourselves to make this right. We are going to take it upon ourselves to make you all whole because Bill, sitting over there by the button, fell asleep and didn't push the button.
Yeah, and the community is completely outraged. We've had 7 deaths as a result of this. And, if it was in the south side of St. Louis, where predominantly white, we know that there would have been some sort of disciplinary action outside of a simple, oops, sorry, we forgot to hit the button. So I unite with that, and I'm very much inspired by all of the incredible organizing that the APDF has been able to, to execute. So I wanted to just ask, we don't have a lot of time, but the media whiteout. They won't cover this, right, but your participation is actually helping in getting the word out about this tornado, and specifically about the role that city of St. Louis played in it. What role should the media be playing in letting the world know about this issue?
The media should be, and particularly the African-American media, should be all over this every single day, because this is a catastrophe. This is an atrocity. There is no reason why in this country, people should be affected in the manner in which they have been by this natural disaster, and then not only affected in the manner in which they have been, but the response is just horrific. Where is FEMA, the Federal Emergency this is an emergency, I believe, Management Administration? Where is FEMA? And to the president, this is a test. This is a test. You are failing the test. You're talking about weeding out waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, what about just flat out ignorance? And what about just flat out failure to do your job? That's what I see. I heard earlier in the broadcast that representatives of FEMA were walking around the city making assessments. Enough with assessments. What about action?
That's right. They have the term benign neglect when they're discussing our housing. I think that this is malignant neglect when we have it intentionally, that they are forgetting to push a button or to even after the storm, to take care of our community. So I am so glad that we have had time to talk to you, Dr. Wilmer Leon, from Connecting the Dots channel on YouTube. Thank you so very much.
My pleasure, my honor. Uhuru.
Uhuru. You've been listening to or watching a very special 2-hour episode of the One Africa Worldview podcast, this week dedicated to letting you know about the history-making impact of the major tornado that hit North St. Louis 2 weeks ago. And we want to invite you to support the massive recovery effort that is underway. The One Africa Worldview podcast airs weekly on the Burning Spear TV's channel on YouTube and Rumble, as well as on the Black Power 96.3 FM radio in St. Pete, Florida, which is a project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, the baddest nonprofit on the planet. Today's special program is also being simulcast on radio stations WGPY-LP-FM in Gulfport, Florida, WXPP-LP-FM in Palmetto, Florida, and WULB-LP-FM in Sarasota, Florida, along with our dear friends in the world of live stream podcasts on YouTube. We want to thank Dr. Wilmer Leon's Connecting the Dots channel on YouTube, Joy Man, host of Savage Joy and author of the upcoming book, Our Friend Yemejin, The Wrongful Conviction of Temujin Kinsu. Also broadcasters Garland Nixon and Ryan Napoli, as well as Caleb Maupin of the Center for Political Innovation. Thank you guys so much for your support. Also want to take a second to go over and thank again our donors, Soliana Bekele, who's also one of the co-hosts of the One Africa Worldview podcast, with a $15 donation to our website. Lisa Watson, Penny Arcos, Akile Anai, an anonymous donor, Penny Hess, MQ, who donated twice, Lynn Bajek, John McCarthy, Comrade Inyendu, Andrea Davis, Comrade Sandy, Becky Camo, Allison, Ruby, Tammy, I'm sorry. So many of these names I recognize. We really deeply appreciate these independent broadcasters and donors for helping to spread the word about this story that has so far been ignored by most of the big legacy media outlets. I'm Jainabah Lumumba. I'm here with Dr. Mariah Bond. We want to thank you for joining us, and a big special thanks to everyone who's donated to the African People's Education and Defense Fund's Northside Disaster Fund. If you are not yet subscribed to the Burning Spear TV channel on YouTube, please do so now. You'll thank me later. Please like and share and subscribe. Share this recording so we can break through these censorship algorithms and support your local community radio stations. These are our independent community voices that must be protected. So with that, you can watch the burningspear.com. Go to the burningspear.com/events for a full calendar of Uhuru Movement activities. And we will catch you next week on One Africa Worldview. One Africa.
One nation.
One nation. Uhuru, comrades. And I want to make sure, I know we were $110 away from reaching our goal. Comrades, let's reach that goal.
Come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
I think we're almost there. Uhuru, comrades.
Uhuru.